Hello again and welcome back to the channel. To all my food warriors, today we are making a proper mac and cheese. We're talking old school. We're going back to basics. Proper old school classic cooking. You're not going to see any blue and yellow boxes here. No powdered luminescent cheese, none of that stuff. We can do better than that. We're going to go old school. We're going to go classic cooking, and we are going to make the best mac and cheese that you've ever had in your life. Weather's turning. It's getting a little colder out there. It's been raining here most of the day. And this is one of those dishes that's really going to warm you from the inside out. So we're going to start. I've got a big pot of water here that's coming up to the boil for my noodles. But before we start, like any good recipe does, we're going to start with a pound of bacon. Now, some of you may be asking, Coach Joe, you look like a man who smokes your own bacon. And you'd be right. I do. This is a 1 pound slab of my own home cured, home smoked bacon. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cube this up. This is completely optional. If you want to keep this more so vegetarian, by all means, I've got a ton of veg that I'm going to be adding into this just to lighten it up. But I do want a little bit of protein, some savoriness in there as well. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this up into kind of rough dice. And this is absolutely, this is spectacular bacon. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that. Good meat to fat ratio. I'm telling you, as I smoke this, I do this every year. I like to have a good supply of bacon going into the winter. But we take a whole belly, cure it, home smoke it, vacuum seal it, stick it in the freezer, and we have bacon whenever we need it. So all I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to cut this up into kind of matchstick size pieces. I just want to render this down, get it crispy. And the recipe that I'm doing today, I'm going to be using about 1 kilo of pasta. So I'm going to be making about as much that will feed easily 8 to 10 people, easily, if not more. So if you want to scale this recipe back a little bit, you certainly can. But that's the amount that I'm making today, as I do want some leftovers during the week. We do have a lot going on this week, and so to have a few extra meals ready and made that just need to be heated up is always a good thing. There we are. So we're just going to cut this up and we're going to throw it in our pan. Alright, we're just going to get the heat under this burner here while we are waiting for our bacon to get cut up. And we are just going to put this right in our pan, like I said, to render some of that fat out and just crispen up this bacon. There we are. There's nothing like making your own bacon. Been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years, and it is absolutely spectacular. There we are. So we're just going to take all of this, just going to put this right in our pan, and we're going to get this starting to crisp up. Like I said, bacon is completely optional, but it does bring a good bit of savoriness, a little bit of smokiness to the dish. Give my hands a good wash. There we are. Alright. Now there's not a lot of fat on this bacon, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this just a tiny bit of olive oil to get that fat starting to render. Now as this is going, we are going to start with our veg. So what I have here, I've got some onions, some garlic, some chilies that I'm going to put in there, but before I do, there's one addition here. I've got some roasted peppers. These are peppers that I've roasted. I put these on the barbecue. You can do these under the broiler in the oven as well. And what you get is a pepper that's completely charred and blackened on the outside. But what you do, I'm just going to do this while I've got a board that is a little bit dirty here. All I want to do is I've taken these once they come off the grill. I put them in a bowl, a bit of saran wrap on top, let them steam for about 30 minutes, and then now that these have been perfectly cooled down, all I do is I give these a little pinch and I pull all of this blackened outer skin right off the pepper. Now these are phenomenally sweet. They've got a nice light smoky flavor, but they're beautifully tender and beautifully sweet. So all I do is I just take all of this black skin right off the pepper. There we are. Got myself a little knife. So if any doesn't want to come off, you can just scrape it with the back of the knife. And then all I do is I cut this right down the middle, make a little incision, and then pull this apart. And what I want to do is just get all of those seeds out. So I will pull this stem end off. With the back of my knife, I will scrape all of these seeds off. And then what you have here is an absolutely phenomenal product. Now this can go on anything. This can go on salads, this can go on pizza, this can go on sandwiches. I mean, it's a great way to get vegetables into people who are not big vegetable eaters. They're very, very sweet. You don't get any of that acid that you sometimes find in a bell pepper. There we are. A beautifully cleaned fillet of bell pepper. There we are. So I'm going to add these in a little bit later. And what I'm going to do is just take this board, move it off to the side, give my hands a wash. Now what I have here was in the garden a little bit earlier. I have a whole colander that I've picked of different kale. I've got curly kale, I've got a little bit of the black kale, which we call caballonero. I've got this beautiful Swiss chard, this rainbow chard. I've got some of this deep purple Swiss chard. I've got some of the green one. All I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this up. It's all been washed. All I'm going to do is cut this up in some fine ribbons, and then we're going to add this into our mixture as well. So while I take care of this, I will see you in about 10 minutes. All right, we are back. We've got a beautiful big bowl of greens. Now with my kales, the stem that goes down the middle of the leaf of the kale tends to get a little bit tough, a little bit woody. So what I do is I just strip the outside leaves off the stem, and I discard the stems. But for the Swiss chard, I keep the stems. They're much more tender. They provide a great color contrast to the dish, but they're also a lot of fiber, a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals. And so I want to put those in because they will get tender as they cook. So my bacon is just about there. I'm going to start with, we're going to add 1 white onion here. We've got a few cloves of garlic as well, and as always, a chili pepper. So we will just get this onion cut up, kind of medium dice, nothing too fine. There we are. Make sure we get the stem end and the root there as well. It's all edible and it's all good stuff. There we are. Alright, so we've got our onion. Just going to give our bacon one final stir here. Now this is a very food-friendly style of bacon. When we cure our bacon, we salt cure it, but we also cure it with some Canadian maple syrup. And I'm talking the real deal. So it gives it, it's slightly salty, slightly sweet, a little smoky, very, very balanced. Goes with a wide variety of dishes as a bit of a flavor accent. So we've got, as always, our chili, and I've got about 4 cloves of garlic here that I'm just going to crush and add to our onions. So let's break this down. And then we're going to give this just a quick chop. And again, this will soften and it will mellow as this dish cooks. So there's really 3 components to this dish. We've got our vegetables here, we've got our noodles obviously, and then we've got our sauce that we're going to make. And this is going to be an old school play off a classic French sauce called the sauce Mornay. And we're going to use that classic bechamel, proper cheese, and the result will be absolutely phenomenal. This will feed a crowd. Any kind of roasted veg that you have left over, always great to add to something like a mac and cheese. It can be otherwise a little bit stodgy, a little bit rich. Vegetables certainly lighten it up, and the more variety of vegetables you can add in, the better off we are. So what I've got here, my bacon's nice and crisp. I'm just going to take my onions, my garlic, my chili pepper, and we're just going to add this right in until they soften. And then we've got some more vegetables that we're going to add here after that. Anytime I have leftover roasted vegetables, this is a great application for it. So let me just get this in, give it a quick stir. Oh, the smell is just absolutely fantastic. So now we do want to be a little bit measured in terms of our seasoning, because the bacon is a little bit salty, but I do want to get a little bit of salt in there just to pull out some of the liquid from the onions. A little bit of freshly cracked black pepper as well. And we're going to give this a quick stir. Now, in terms of some of the other vegetables that I'm adding, you've got our Swiss chard and our kale here. We've got our roasted peppers that I'm going to slice up in a second. But I've also got, these are some roasted beets. Now, I made these a couple of days ago. Tomorrow night we're going to have a beautiful steak dinner with a nice roasted beet salad. These are beets that came directly out of the garden, and these literally went into the oven to roast about 5 minutes after they came out of the dirt. And all I did was wash them up, sliced them in half, whole cloves of garlic, some fresh sprigs of thyme, a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, wrapped them up in aluminum foil, stuck them in a 450-degree oven for about an hour, and these are absolutely beautifully just soft and sweet. All I've done is I've peeled them and I've cut these up into roughly the size of the pasta that I'm going to use for my mac and cheese, and I'm going to add these in as well just to give a little bit of a different dimension. So I've got my beets ready to go. I'm just going to take my roasted peppers here and I'm just going to slice these up. These are very soft and very sweet. There we are. Push these off. Oh. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. All right, we're just gonna, again, cut these up. Push these off to the side. Last one. So this is 3 peppers that I've roasted. These come out to about a pound of flesh by weight. These are just three good sized bell peppers. There we are. So before we put those in, I'm just going to give this a little stir. All we want is for those onions to start to sweat down, become a little bit translucent, and for some of the sugars to start coming out. There we are. I think we are just about there. So now what I'm going to do is add in my greens. Now this is this is a fair bit of greens, but this is going to cook down to a volume that's much less than what you see going in the pan here. There we are. So these will wilt down. We're just going to toss these around in the pan with a set of tongs. These will wilt down, and these will all fit well in the pan by the time we're done. So we're just going to let the heat come through these, toss them around a little bit, maybe add a little salt and pepper, and I will see you in about 5 minutes. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. As you can see, our greens have wilted down beautifully. Now this is, I'd say, a 14-inch skillet, and you've got greens going up about 1.5 inches in the skillet. So by volume, this is quite a bit of greens. So we want to make sure that these are all cooked through, but these are wilting down beautifully. Now you notice I just put mine in because there wasn't a whole lot of fat in the bottom of the pan. If you are using commercially made bacon that's a little on the fatty side, you might see a bit of a pool of fat. What you want to do is drain that off and only keep what it is that you need to basically saute your greens and the rest of your vegetables. But you certainly don't want to be doing that in a whole pool of fat. The bacon, as you saw, was quite lean, and so not a whole lot of fat coming out of that. With a bit of the olive oil, that was exactly the fat that I needed to saute my greens beautifully. Look at the vibrant colors in this pan. I've got my stems in there as well that add a little bit of crunch, good bit of texture, and some color as well. All I've added to this was a little bit of salt and pepper. And now the last thing we're going to add is our roasted beets. Now these just need to be heated through. They're already cooked. So this is about, I'd say, maybe the equivalent of 6 or 8 medium-sized beets. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw those in. Oh, there we are. There we are. And then the last thing that we're going to add here are our roasted peppers. There we are. There we are. So we will just stir this through, and we're going to take this off the heat, and we're going to get another pot on here so we can get started with our cheese sauce. So I think this is pretty well there. I'm just going to give this a little taste. I think we need a little bit more salt and a little bit of pepper. There we are. All right. We will give this just a quick stir, and we are done. All right. All right, so we're just going to put these just on the side here to cool. Put this up here. Take a new pot. There we are. Just turn this off to the side. All right, and we will start our cheese sauce. So what we have is about 1/3 cup of butter. This is unsalted butter because I want to control the amount of salt that's going to be going into this dish. So I'm just going to put this into our pan, and we're going to let that melt. Now the beginning of this sauce is really what we call a roux, and a roux is equal parts flour and butter, and that flour is going to be used to thicken the sauce. So we're just going to give this a few seconds to melt, and I will be back in about 30 seconds. All right, our butter is melted, and we have equal parts butter to flour, so 1/3 cup of butter and 1/3 cup of flour. This is just regular, this is a good organic all-purpose flour. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my whisk, and I'm just going to whisk in my butter and my flour. And what I want to do here is basically cook out some of the raw taste from the flour, but this is going to be the thickening agent for our sauce. So what I have here, this is a flat whisk, and this is really meant to get into the corner of pots that kind of go down and have a bit of a corner. If this was being done in a bowl that had a rounded bottom, I would use a regular whisk. But in this case, I want to be able to get down into the corners. I don't want any of the butter or the flour to burn. There we are. So now what I have here is a very light colored roux. This is what we call a blonde roux. Very, very pale, almost a light beige in terms of color. And now what I want to do is I want to add my milk. Now this is a liter plus 1 cup of milk. This is just regular 2% milk. And I'm going to put this directly into my pot. And as I do, I'm going to add a little bit to start. And as I do, I'm just going to get down in there and I'm going to whisk, because I don't want any lumps to be forming as the flour is thickening the sauce. Oh, there we are. I'm going to add a little bit more. There we are. We're just going to work that through. And we're going to smoothen that right out. Perfect. No lumps. And now we can add the rest of our milk. And I'm just going to whisk that around as well. We want to bring this up to temperature. Really, we won't know the result of the thickening, the amount of thickening that we have here in this pot, until this gets right up to the boil, and then that will give us a full sense of the consistency and how thick that roux will really thicken our sauce. But it's not going to be the only thickening agent. We've got our cheese to put in as well. So I'm just going to give this a quick stir, make sure we've got no lumps, and I'll come back to this in a sec. Now, This is the beginnings of a classic bechamel. What I want to do is I want to add some nutmeg as well. And nutmeg is something that you really want to grate fresh if you can. If you have, ground nutmeg, by all means, not an excuse not to make this, but if you can, freshly ground nutmeg is the best. And this is one of these little nutmeg graters that I have. So we're just gonna give this a little grate. But any microplane grater can be used. What you want is a very, very fine shaving of nutmeg to perfume and scent the sauce. This is very, very classic. The bechamel sauce is ubiquitous throughout northern Italy and certainly throughout French cooking as well. There we are. And when we get down to the end, there's very, very little left. We don't want to grate our fingers, so we'll just get rid of that. So we will whisk this in. Oh, what a smell. What an absolutely beautiful perfume. Now we are going to season the sauce as well. So as we go, you want to add a little bit of salt and pepper. So a couple of pinches of salt. And we want to add, now some people are very particular, white dish, they want to add white pepper. We've already got nutmeg in here that we see, so a little bit of black pepper is not going to be the end of the world. Plus, I think black pepper actually tastes a little bit more intense than white pepper. And so I'm going to go for the taste versus the visual every time. There we are. So we're just going to whisk this along. This should take about 10 minutes, about another 10 minutes or so to come up to temperature. And then we will start to add the remainder of our spices and our ingredients. So I will see you in about 10 minutes. All right, we are back. Our bechamel is thickening beautifully. Now the way we know that it's thickened, we take a spoon, we put it in, turn it to the back, and if we can run one channel down without it closing up, we know that it's thickening beautifully. And as I stir this up, oh, just beautifully creamy, beautifully thick. Love that. So we're just going to give this one whisk before we start adding some of our seasonings as we look to bring this thing to the point of being finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off, this is 1.5 tablespoons of paprika. I will just add this in. This is more for color than for flavoring. I've got 3 tablespoons of dry mustard. Now this is one of the most signature ingredients that I know of for a proper mac and cheese. This gives it that little bit of tang in addition to giving it a good bit of color. But without the mustard, you really notice it when it's not there. So this is 3 tablespoons. I'm just going to add that in, and we're going to whisk this around. We don't want any lumps of these seasonings in there. Now I do have these out of the way. I do have a little bit of white wine as well. So what I have here, this is about, I'd say 4 ounces of a dry white wine. Just going to take that and pour it right in. This is going to bring a little bit of acidity, a little bit of brightness to our cheese sauce in the end. So what we want to do is we just want to cook away that alcohol, and what's going to be left is going to be a great note of acid, just to counterbalance the richness of the sauce and the richness of the cheese. So this is coming together beautifully. Now, the pasta that I'm going to be using today, these are called the cappelletti. They're little hats. What we want to do in terms of what pasta we want to select for this application, we want pasta, number one, that's bronze die cut, but also one that's got a lot of little surfaces and crevices for the sauce to kind of get into. Fusilli works well for this. I wouldn't use something like a penne or a pennine, but certainly something like a Rutini or a Fusilli. These are what I happen to have kicking around the house, so these have a great shape to them, so these are the ones that I'm going to use. This is 1 kilo of pasta. Like I said, we're making a double batch here, so this is going to feed easily 8 to 10 people, if not more. So I'm not, I've got a big dish here, so I'm not concerned about the amount of pasta that I have. So this is, again, heating up beautifully. Now before I add my cheese, I am going to get my pasta in the water. So what I have here, I have a pot of boiling water. Just going to put it here. I'm going to salt my water. So I want to make sure I give this kind of the level of salinity of seawater. So I want to give this a good, I'd say 3 or 4 tablespoons of a good quality sea salt. And then I'm going to throw my noodles in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook these till just underdone. So on the package, these are 9 minutes to al dente. I'm going to cook these for about 8 minutes because they are going to continue to cook in the oven in the cheese sauce. So all I'm going to do is take these guys and just dump them right in. There we are. We'll give them a quick stir, just so that nothing is sticking together. And then I'm going to get my timer. There we are, set that for 8 minutes, and we will be ready to go. Now my cheese sauce is starting to come up to a simmer, so what I want to do now is add my cheese mixture. Before I do have the juice of 1 lemon that I'm going to be adding to this, and the reason why I'm going to be adding some lemon juice, I don't want long strands of cheese in my sauce. I want a beautifully silky, creamy sauce, and this is going to give me that. It's going to cut some of those the bonds that the cheese has with each other, and it's going to keep me from getting those long strands like you would otherwise get on a pizza. So I will take this lemon juice, I will throw that right in, give this a quick stir, and I will get my cheese mixture. Now what I have here, this is 1 kilo of cheese from 4 different varieties. So what I have here is an aged sharp cheddar. I have Emmental. I have Gruyere, not Gruyere. I have Comte rather from France, which is an aged cheese that's a little bit nutty. And then I have a Monterey Jack with some chili flakes sprinkled throughout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this in installments. I'm not going to add the whole thing in at once. So I'm just going to give this a good couple of handfuls, and then we're going to whisk that in. There we are. And as we add that cheese, it will thicken the sauce, but we want to make sure that we add a little bit at a time. We don't want to put in a big brick of cheese and have a big block in there. We want all of this cheese to incorporate into the sauce. So this is 250 grams each of those 4 different kinds of cheese. The Monterey Jack with the chilies, the Comte from France, the Emmental from Switzerland, and then we've got the just a regular aged cheddar here from Canada. We'll give this, there we are. There we are. Next installment, and we will whisk this around. Now it's also important to note that some of the cheese, especially the older cheese that has a little bit more age on it, tends to be a little bit saltier. But what I like to do is use a combination of cheeses, some a little younger, some a little older, some not quite as aged, and some aged a little bit longer. The aged cheeses tend to give a little bit more character, a little bit more nuttiness, but they don't quite melt as well. The younger cheeses melt much better in this case. So the cheddar and the Monterey Jack are giving this a nice creamy consistency. The Emmental and the Comte are here for flavor, although they do melt quite well as well. There we are. Oh, beautiful. We'll get another handful in there. Now you can grate all this cheese by hand, or as I did in this case, use the food processor. It comes with a little wheel attachment that sits on the top of your food processor with 2 different size kind of grating wheels, and I just used the coarse wheel for this one. It made short work of all of this cheese. So we just want to make sure we keep stirring here. We don't want anything to stick to the bottom and burn. We are going to give our pasta a little stir here as well. We don't want any of these guys to stick together. And all right. right, that's all melted through. And you can see this is a beautiful velvety sauce. There's no big long strands of cheese, none of that. It's a beautiful velvety sauce. That is perfect. The level of salt in there is absolutely perfect. There we are. So we're just going to get the last of our cheese in there. I know what some of you might be thinking, a kilo of cheese is quite a bit. Again, this is going to feed a crowd, so I'm not concerned about the amount of cheese given the number of people that this will feed. There we are. Now we're just going to keep this warm, and we're going to keep this going. Now as we add the cheese, obviously it cools down the temperature of the sauce, and so we want to make sure we bring that back up to temperature so that it melts and we get a beautiful consistency. So we've got a couple of minutes more on my pasta. I'm just going to bring my sauce up to temperature, and I will see you in about 3 minutes. It has been 8 minutes. I've just pulled our pasta, and now we are going to start to assemble for the second part of this application, of this preparation. This is going to go in the oven for about another between 20 and 30 minutes just to get a beautiful brown crust on the top. So here we are, just finishing up our sauce. Now we're going to start to assemble in our bowl here. I've got our vegetables that have cooled down a little bit. So we're going to take all of these vegetables and we're going to put this right in our bowl. And we're just going to get everything mixed in here and then right into our oven dish. There we are. Make sure we get all of that in there. There we are. So now we've got, look at all this. Look at all this, the colors. All right, we're just, oh, it's a little bit hot. So we're gonna towel here. And we'll just make sure we drain the excess water. So I've pulled my noodles 1 minute before the recommended package instructions. There we are. Throw these in there on the left. All right. And now we've got our sauce. So we're just going to give this one final stir. We're going to cut the heat. Oh, I love this. There we are. So we'll just scrape everything off our whisk here. We don't want to lose any of this. There we are. All right. Do that here. Sauce, and we will just pour this right in. Oh, look at that. That is what I'm talking about. Just give this a little scrape. There we are. There we are. Now we will give this a stir to make sure that we mix in all of our vegetables, all of our pasta. Everything is homogeneous here. And then we're going to throw this directly into our oven-proof casserole or a lasagna pan or anything that would be suitable that you happen to have kicking around the house. There we are. All right, let's put this off to the side for a sec. A little bit of spill insurance. We've got our big hotel pan that goes right in there. And we are going to take this and just pour this right out. Look at that. Oh, come on. Come on. There we are. We don't want to leave anybody behind. There we are. Oh, love it. Now we will just move this around, make sure that we get even distribution of all of our layers. A little bit of veg in each bite, a little bit of bacon. Make sure we got our noodles in there. There we are. Oh, love this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this into a 450 degree oven. And I'm going to have this in the top third of the oven. And all we want to do is get this bubbling and get a beautiful brown crust on the top. It should take between 20 and 30 minutes. I'm going to throw this in the oven now, and I will see you in about 20. And we are done. Look at that. Oh, still bubbling, beautifully crispy on top. To all of our lasagna connoisseurs out there, these crispy noodles are just like the corner piece of the lasagna, and everybody knows who's a connoisseur of lasagna. That's where the action is. That's where you want to be. Oh. Now you could let this cool for a couple of minutes before you serve it, because this thing is like napalm right now, but you know what? We're going in. We are going in because that's just how we do it. This is easily 12 people. Easily 12 people out of all this. So let's start. Oh, look at that. Beautifully creamy. Oh, beautifully cheesy. We got all those veg in there as well. We've got our bacon. Oh, look at that. Now that is what I'm talking about. Now you could use any host of vegetables in here. Like I said, leftover roast vegetables. These go in here classically. But anything that you happen to have on hand, whether it's squash, whether it's carrots, anything roasted, like I said, I've done this with Brussels sprouts as well. It really lightens up the dish, brings a little bit of sweetness to what is otherwise a pretty stodgy, pretty heavy dish. But this really lightens it up. So we've got our greens in here, we've got our bacon, our onions, our chili pepper, our roasted beets. Oh, just... mm. Oh, there we are. Oh. Mm. 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 Oh yeah. Soft, creamy, a little bit of that crunchy noodle up top. Mm. Beautiful beet. Oh, let me tell you, this is one of those dishes that warms you from the inside out. One plate of this, I'm telling you, it will cure what ails you. You will be good to go, regardless of what the day has in store for you. Do try it. As always, do like and subscribe. Share the content if you find it at all useful. But this is one that you absolutely have to try. Absolutely fantastic. Until the next time, I will see you on the next one.